Welcome back to our panel discussion exploring the full spectrum of mobile risks in government, sponsored by Lookout here on federalnewsradio.com and Federal News Radio 1500 AM. My guests today are Bob Stevens, the Vice President for Federal at Lookout, and Kirsten Todd, Managing Partner of the Liberty Group Ventures. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. And let's start this segment by giving a sort of temperature gauge to the state of mobile security in the federal government. And maybe you can tell us, give us an idea of which agencies, in general, might be ahead of the game and which might be still stuck a few years behind the eight ball here.
Yeah, I think that most of the agencies are stuck behind the eight ball. I think in a lot of cases, as Kirsten said earlier, they've relied on MDMs or mobile device managers as a form of security. But as we talked about, there's a whole lot more that's required. So I think most of the agencies that we talk to are still behind. A lot of them are still testing a potential solution, which is quite unfortunate because, mobile moves very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And the way that the government typically works and the way they acquire, takes them months and months and months. Well, by the time that they've tested a solution, it's likely that one is 4 or 5 revisions old. So I think they've got to really adapt a new system to be able to keep up with this type of technology and to ensure that it's secure.
And I imagine the constant updates coming from the manufacturers of operating systems alone makes it a different type of security environment than the desktop, where you have some updates, but you basically have the same operating system for years.
That's right. The mobile device can be upgraded at any time by the user. It's very hard to prevent that. It's not like the desktop where you can control and to ensure that you're on a safe or secure version of the product or operating system. As you said, mobile device is completely different. I can upgrade those at any time. It's completely dependent on me as the user.
Sure. And Kirsten, what are some of the processes that agencies need to have in place to develop good security plans in the first place?
Well, I think the first issue is awareness, and that's something that we're really struggling with, I think, on the mobile security front. And in conversations that I've had with senior people in government, there's also just the sense that mobile is so overwhelming and that we're catching up on security policies from the past right now. And so to introduce this new threat to the present becomes very challenging because it adds another layer. And having a strong strategy at the highest level of government from the White House would do a lot to help this issue, to identify mobile security as a key security priority for government agencies. And we're certainly hoping that we're going to see something like that when the White House releases the National Cybersecurity Strategy.
Because agencies have been really focusing on cloud and cloud security, and it would seem like mobile is really related to that because the cloud instances of software and applications will be accessed by mobile devices to bring the whole thing full circle, to have total flexibility and mobility. So it seems like they should go hand in hand.
You're absolutely right. I mean, almost every application on your mobile device uses the cloud. So you've got to ensure that not only is the device secure, but also your cloud is secure. But, having said that, there's ways that the government is trying to do that. FedRAMP is one example of that. We at Lookout have embraced FedRAMP and understand it's really about helping the government understand the controls that we've put in place to protect their data. I just wish that there was more of a stick when it came to FedRAMP, and agencies would be held accountable when they don't use solutions that meet those requirements.
And you mentioned standards too. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has a mobile security framework too. Has that had traction, do you think, with the government in getting over this issue?
Well, I think it's so. First of all, when NIST puts something like that out, that's fantastic, and it certainly sets a precedent and a goal marker. It doesn't have the traction right now that we'd like to see, but it's a terrific starting point. And again, you get more power and impact when the force is mobilized. So having the NIST standard combined with a national strategy. We have the new CIO who came in, Suzette Kent at OMB. There's an opportunity for her as well as Grant Schneider, who's working with the National Security Council and the Office of Management and Budget, to take leadership role on this and set a standard across government that identifies mobile security as a key priority.
Now, the mobile devices really start out life as primarily consumer devices, and yet so many enterprises, large and small, including government, have adopted them. Is there much cooperation from the device community and the several manufacturers and the ecosystem there to aid in the security issue as you get from more traditional forms of IT?
Well, I think the manufacturers of the devices do as much as they can. I mean, they're trying to protect the firmware and to ensure that the integrity of the device is secure when it comes out of the box. But after that, the user takes possession, and the user again can do whatever they want. They can download apps from basically anywhere in the world. It's not just the app stores. It becomes very quickly out of the manufacturer's hands. Basically, it's when the device is opened and turned on. It's now up to the user. So I think that they do what they can, but for the most part, it's going to be after it's opened and
Sure.
secure. Yeah.
It's almost like cars. You can make them so safe, but if you have a crazy driver, there's nothing anybody can do.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And the report to the president on federal IT modernization does mention that the current approach to cyber is not really all that adequate in the mobile world. Can you comment on that?
I think it identifies the issue that government agencies and government policies haven't efficiently addressed this issue. And I do just want to pull a thread of something that Bob mentioned. Right now, sort of the flavor of the day is the Internet of Things, IoT devices. And we talk a lot about the refrigerators that are talking to us, and you made the point about driverless cars. But we're forgetting that one of the most prominent and critical IoT devices is the smartphone, is the mobile device. So if we think about all the effort and energy that we're looking at creating legislation and standards around IoT devices, it would serve the government as well as industry well to start with how we're securing the mobile devices.
Sure. And in that regard, in the vein we've been talking about the user idea, Bob, Lookout found that prohibiting personal smartphone use at work has not really had a whole lot of effect, has it?
Well, no. I mean, the smartphones give people instant gratification. They also make them very productive at work. And so, a person that is using a smartphone in their personal lives wants every benefit that they get from their work life. So trying to tell a user that they can't use that personal device for work or to even ban them just really, I don't think is an effective security measure. I think the users are still going to try and do everything that they can to use the device just like they do in their personal lives.
All right. On that note, we'll take a short break here. My guests today are Kirsten Todd, Managing Partner of Liberty Group Ventures, and Bob Stevens, Vice President of Public Sector at Lookout. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. This discussion is exploring the full spectrum of mobile risks in government, sponsored by Lookout here on federalnewsradio.com and Federal News Radio 1500 AM.